I think to start off with that comparison culture is definitely viewed more of as a negative thing in life.
Yeah.
However, I think it can be both a positive and negative measure. Welcome to Ceyflix TV's Ceypod Live Next Gen podcast, where we talk about all things that relate to teenagers and young adults. So today we're going to be talking about comparison culture, which is becoming quite a big thing in today's generation. How would you define comparison culture?
Yeah, so I'd define comparison culture as basically, comparing yourself or a group of things to a different set of things or a different person, and the way that you would compare those two things. That's what I'd define comparison culture as, and the comparison culture itself is just the amount of people that are starting to do that, and how that is starting to affect a lot of people. Not just in Adelaide, in Australia, but around the world as well. And that's mainly due to the rise of social media and other technologies and platforms. So, what are your experiences with comparison culture, and what are your opinions on it?
Yeah, definitely. I think to start off with that comparison culture is definitely viewed more of as a negative thing in life.
Yeah.
However, I think it can be both a positive and negative measure of things. In the sense, it can be negative. The reason we all think it's so negative is because you're comparing something to something. If you're comparing yourself to somebody else at school, whether that be in beauty, appearance, or it could be in terms of grades. Alternatively, in like a sporting context, you could be comparing yourself to somebody your age, younger than you, who's performing at a higher level, or you're comparing yourself to an elite athlete. Which then obviously, depending on how you take it, can become quite negative. Because if you think, oh, they look better than me, or they're doing so much better in their life than I was at that age, that's when like that self-esteem drops significantly and it becomes a negative thing. However, it can be quite a positive thing if you look at it in the sense that, like, okay, they're able to do this technique in this sport, or they're able to do this thing. Like, how about I learn to do that? It's not going, oh, they can do it, I can't. It's going, if they can be that, how can I get to that level? I think you have to look at it in both ways. And it's important not to just put yourself down because you've gone, they're better than me.
Yeah. So yeah, I think obviously comparison culture is now becoming a pretty big thing, but I think there's positives and negatives to it. So let's first discuss the positives. Comparison can be a good thing, like you said, but it just depends on the way you do it. So if you're doing it to get better, then obviously it's a great thing. Go for it. And you can really put that into different contexts, like we do with a lot of our other conversations. So, if you take it from a schooling context, if you're sort of working in groups with other people, or if you're working with someone that's probably better at you in a certain subject, and you just compare yourself to them, and you sort of just try to outdo them, that can be sort of a healthy comparison to make, and it can also push you to do better. Same thing with sports. If one of your goals is to be better than one of your friends at something, or get more better, or get a better stat than them by the end of the season, that is a very healthy comparison to make, as long as you don't take it too far. And that can allow you to be better, can push you, motivate you, and can really affect you in a positive way. So is there any other ways that you think comparison culture can be a positive thing, and how it can positively impact someone?
Yeah, definitely. In any context, if you're working in, like, let's say, a group setting, whether that be in pairs, threes, or a few more people, if you're comparing everyone to everyone and going, these are some people's strengths, it helps you recognize your strengths, their strengths. Therefore, like you said, you all push yourselves to be the best version of yourself, which then produces a better outcome of whatever goal you're trying to achieve within that group. Similarly, again, like you said, it's being able to go, okay, someone can do this, how can I also do this? But like you said, it's important not to take it too far, because if you start going, oh, this week they took 5 wickets, I only took 1, or now I'm a whole 4 wickets behind them. Don't take it like that. It's going, okay, they just had a better game than me. Not to say they'll have that better game every week. Sometimes they might. It's going, okay, how can I better use the opportunities I had?
Yeah, so it's about having like a healthy comparison between two sets of things.
Absolutely. And then in terms of that, going back to the, I guess, the negative side of things, which I guess has the bigger focus in life, because that's where our thoughts tend to go half the time. I think that's where the issue comes in. If, regardless of what context you're in, if you're, let's say, comparing your appearance, beauty to somebody, you can't go, oh, he or she has such nice clear skin, but I don't. You have to be able to think about the external aspects that influence that.
Yeah.
It could potentially be they just have a different skin type, or they are doing something to stay, to keep that appearance. It's not that they're just naturally like that. Could be fantastic genes, but it also then has to be you going, all right, I have a different skin type to them. That is why I'm struggling a bit more than they are. What can I do to either fix it, if it is fixable? Otherwise going, okay, what can I do to improve my self-esteem? And then looking at an improvement or like a solution for it in that same scenario of beauty is, it could be maybe on social media you're only looking at actresses, influencers, public figures. Yeah, so it could be the fact that you're very much looking at influencers, actresses, models who online have this perfect image that you go, why can't I be like them? It's a matter of going, okay, maybe I need to find those creators and online figures who have the same skin type as me, and that way you're coming back to that going, that's all good. It could also be you're going comparing yourself to going, oh, somebody's traveling so much at their age, why can't I do the same thing? Like, we've had a similar life path, it seems. It's just going, okay, if they are able to do that, it's going, how can I save up the money? What can I do so I can be like them? But it's not going to extreme factors, though. Going, let's say you wanted to travel and you wanted to save money, because obviously travel's an expensive, I guess, hobby, you could say. It's not going, I will not spend money on things I need and should have. It's going, okay, we have a saving goal. We do little by little so we can build up to that final goal.
Yeah, so if we're just gonna go to negatives, obviously social media has had a huge impact in comparison culture, and that's probably, it's gonna continue to rise. And like you said, comparing your looks is something that's very very common, and it's also something that a lot of schools are trying to get on top of, and they're trying to educate people. So I think it's about sort of just understanding yourself and understanding what you're consuming online. And I think it's also about just the way that you view yourself. Obviously, that can create issues like mental health issues, anxiety, depression, low self-esteem, a range of other things, by comparing yourself in unhealthy ways. But there's also, that other factor of, that's what social media sort of wants you to do. There's some people that make a living off, their pictures or whatever, and having other people, compare themselves to that. and then that's how they sort of open up a gateway to, you know, selling products. You know, if you use said product, you'll look like this, and so that's the sort of thing that creates that unhealthy comparison. So I think it's about being able to differentiate between good comparisons and bad comparisons, and just understanding both social media and how that's going to affect the way you view yourself, and the way that you already view yourself outside of, you know, the online world. So what do you think is the most important thing to, you know, sort of just battle, you know, the way you view yourself? Because obviously it's easy for us to say this, but, you know, no matter what, if we have social media, it's still going to affect us. So how would you go about it?
Definitely, I think the most important thing is to understand what the issue is, in a way, what the problem is. If it's, let's say, sporting achievement, right? If you're not doing as well as somebody else is, it's going, okay, what are the external factors impacting that? It's understanding and, I guess, recognizing the situation, but also accepting it. It's going, life's not going to be perfect. It's not all going to work out the way you want it to. So it's kind of going, okay, if they have more of some statistic than I do, it's going, okay, do they potentially bat higher up in the order? Is that because they're getting more exposure to facing balls? Whereas if you're batting in the lower half, you're most likely, more or less the time, not going to get a hit. That's the reason there could be a stat difference there. Or it could be you are bowling well, but maybe your team isn't just taking the chances in the field. Because in the end of the day, you could be bowling to your field, but if they're not taking those catches, capitalising on run-out opportunities, it is obviously hurting the team, A, but it's hurting your stats too.
Yeah.
But it's understanding, going, I'm doing the right things. It just might not be working out. And it's going, okay, how can I work to get this to maybe go my way a bit more? How can I work with those external factors around me? If it's your teammates, it's going, maybe having a conversation about what can I do to get up that order so I'm facing more balls. Or it's, maybe we need to get together as a team and do a bit more fielding training.
Yeah.
It's looking at that and just understanding and accepting the situation, and then finding contingency plans to battle those little obstacles that are in your way of achieving that final goal that you are comparing yourself to. And along with that, I'm sure you've had examples of being in comparison culture, whether you're comparing yourself to others around you or people you see online. What's an example that you can give?
Yeah, so yeah, it'll just come down to, you know, the environment I'm in. You know, if I'm in a sports team, obviously you'd want to compare yourself to the better players, especially when, you know, they're older and they're better. Then obviously you want to be more like them. You know, you want to get those stats. That can really apply for any sport, you know, soccer, cricket, AFL, anything. But yeah, it'd probably just be comparing yourself to, you know, just major athletes. That would be probably the biggest thing that I've had. But I think it's sort of just like knowing that they're elite for a reason, you know, so not trying to be too much like them, still doing your own thing, but also just taking the positive aspects of that. So I think that's a fairly healthy way of comparing yourself. But yeah, so it would obviously be harder to compare yourself positively if it's a person that you know very well, and you know, if you're just trying to constantly outdo someone, can be a good thing at the start, but if you start overdoing it, then that's when it, you know, cross the line. That's when it becomes bad. And, you know, that creates a whole range of other issues that we probably don't have time to go over today. But yeah, I think it just all comes down to the way that you view comparing yourself, you know, the way that you believe is good to compare yourself, and also just making sure that you control it and that you're only using it to get better and better yourself, and, you know, just do what you love to do, but, you know, just keep improving, which is, you know, really good, but not crossing that line into, you know, just over comparing yourself and just unnecessarily burning yourself out, comparing yourself to other people. So I think the positives and negatives are there, and it's obviously something that we're not going to get rid of, and it's something that will, continue to rise as social media, rises as well, and more social media platforms pop up. But yeah, it's also just about, the media you intake, the media you consume, and just how you view those things. And it's also obviously important to note that half the things you see online are going to be fake. There's editing, Photoshop, AI, range of different things that are used to, make someone's life seem better. So, comparing yourself to someone on social media is definitely not a healthy thing to do, and I think you'd know that. And it's something that will affect someone's mental health without them even knowing. So it's just about understanding that, and also just understanding the different things that actually go on with, how these different apps are designed to make you want to spend more time on them. And a part of that is, the different creators on said apps, editing their photos or photoshopping using AI just to make you stay on it that second longer, which gains them more money. Because at the end of the day, the more that you compare yourself to some random people on social media, the more money they're going to get. So it's about understanding the difference between that. So is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think the key takeaways of it is just that it can be both a positive and a negative experience on somebody's life. It just depends the mindset and the viewpoint that you take on it. It's always important to go, sometimes someone's just going to be better than you at something. And you just got to accept that. So I think the most important thing is to always look for the positive side of it. It's, what am I doing that's the same as them? It's like, maybe how can I get better, but staying motivated because you want to get better, not because you want to necessarily competitively outdo them. And it's also just to understand and accept the environments that you're in, the external factors, and just trying to navigate them. I think that's the most important part.
Yeah. Yeah, so, it's just about, understanding that and just viewing yourself in a positive way. I agree with that. So, just to sort of round things off, is there any other sort of way that you think comparison culture will continue to affect the world, and how do you think that will positively and negatively just affect the future?
Yeah, so I think comparison culture's probably gotten a little bit better since the social media bans come in, because there's less young people engaging with said content on social media, which is less people developing mental health issues and going down that pathway. Because of that, I feel like when they do come up to that age of where they're able to and will be interacting on social media with these influencers and elite figures, I think it's also them then being knowledgeable of the fact that, okay, if we do fall into a little rabbit hole of going down the negative comparison path, it's going, okay, what are some support services that I have, figures in my life, services that are available, and it's just going, okay, who can I talk to? Because end of the day, I think the older you get, I feel like you have that cognitive function to be able to go, this is not great, not good for me, not good for the people around me. How can I reach out? They then have the agents and the independency to go, okay, I think I just need to disassociate with this, or go talk to someone about this. I think hopefully now that we have introduced that ban, I think it will help improve comparison culture. Not saying that it only impacts young people, young teenagers. It definitely applies all the way through life, but hopefully it stops that like premature development and like negative thinking.
Yeah. So we have run out of time for today's episode. So today we discussed obviously differentiating between good comparisons and bad comparisons, as well as the different contexts in which, comparing yourself can be healthy and can also be unhealthy, and, how to, deal with comparison culture. So yeah, I think it was a really good discussion today, and join us next time on Ceypod.